What's up, guys? It's Rob here, and today we're going to be talking about sundial stock, ticker symbol SNDL. Now, unfortunately, we are moving down today, and we're moving down on some news we've gotten related to the earnings call. We got that coming out, and we also heard about a rebranding initiative. Okay, sundial is going to be rebranding their company, so we're also going to dive into that and talk about what is going on, right? Why did sundial pump up as the earnings news came out and then subside and fade away, and is actually almost hitting lows of the past 2 days? It's very close. It's tapping off 50 cents right now, and hopefully we'll get a bounce off of that. But unfortunately, there is some negative momentum that's pulling sundial down right now. So we're going to talk about what was in the earnings call and why it wasn't necessarily the best earnings call for the entire year, but overall, it was actually somewhat strong regarding the quarter that they were reporting earnings for, right? This is the fourth quarter earnings call, and things were actually going pretty darn well for them in the fourth quarter. If you look at the entire year, sundial wasn't doing as great in 2021 as they were in 2020. You can actually see net revenue for 2021 was 56 million, and that was a decrease of 8% over the previous year, right? So they actually had fewer earnings over the course of 2021 than they did in 2020. Now, that's unfortunate, but most of that was actually due to the other quarters this year. In fact, if you look at net revenue for the fourth quarter of 2021, this current earnings call, it was 22.7 million, a 63% increase over the fourth quarter of 2020. So they've rapidly been growing over the past couple of months. And I expect that a lot of this momentum will have stuck around for the earlier part of 2021. Or of 2022. It'll be very interesting to see what kind of earnings we get at the next sundial earnings call. If they can keep this momentum up, then it could be looking pretty good. They have made some pledges, some promises, and set some goals for themselves that we're going to get into regarding when they want to become profitable. We're going to talk about that. But first, we'll talk about the loss. So overall, they did have a net loss for the fourth quarter, right? They lost 54 million for the fourth quarter of 2021 compared to a loss of 64 million the fourth quarter of 2020. So they've actually cut down some of their costs. They've cut down some inefficiencies as they've been growing, and they lost less money overall than they did in 2020. So that is a good thing right there. The fact that their net loss for the fourth quarter of 2021 was a little bit smaller. Now, they are becoming a much larger company, and a lot of the reason that they haven't actually been growing potentially as fast as they could have been is because they've recently come into a lot of money, and they are being somewhat careful with it, right? They're being very conservative with it. They have currently about $1.1 billion in cash, marketable securities, and long-term investments. A lot of that came from stock offerings, right? They ended up doing some stock offerings in 21, and they collected a whole bunch of money. And they have been doing some acquisitions with it, obviously Alcana being a main one, but they're still sitting on about $377 million of cash and have no debt. So they paid off a lot of their debts. And this is as of April 25th, by the way, right? So pretty recent stuff. Just about 3 days ago, they've got no debt, and they still have $377 million of cash just sitting on the balance sheet. So they are being somewhat conservative, right? They don't just want to go out on a spending spree and spend a ton researching, developing, and buying up companies left and right. They're still being somewhat careful. They're keeping cash on the balance sheet, realizing that potentially times could get a little rough in the future for not just their business, but the whole economy potentially. And they want to have a little bit of a buffer zone. They don't want to have to go back into debt. They'd rather have some cash on hand. So they're not fully focusing on rapid expansion at the moment. They realize that potentially there will be some buying opportunities down the pipeline. Now, they also have been buying up companies, right? They do want to use some of that cash. They talked about some of them. And we actually have a quote from the CEO right here where he says, 2021 was a transformational year for sundial. We increased the sustainability of our business model, established a strong balance sheet, positive adjusted EBITDA results, and significant improvements in gross margin. He said, we continue to focus on improvements to our supply chain and manufacturing process against a competitive and challenging operating environment in Canada. Sundial is working to become a leading regulated product platform through leveraging consumer insights and innovation to deliver best-in-class products. We are beginning to see positive momentum across all of our key operating segments and remain committed to our goal of becoming free cash flow positive within the 2022 calendar year. So two really important things that he said towards the end of this blurb, right? He said that they're beginning to see a lot of positive momentum across all of their key operating segments. That's really good. And we can actually see that for ourselves when we see that 2021 overall was a worse year than 2020. However, the fourth quarter, the most recent quarter, was actually a really good quarter and a huge boost. So they have been growing rapidly, right? They probably had to pause some of their operations and take a little step back, a little breather, while they were undergoing monumental changes at their business during the earlier part of 2021. But now they're actually starting to pick up a lot of steam. So it's really good to see that. And lastly, what he said here, the really important thing is that he remains committed to his goal of becoming free cash flow positive within the 2022 calendar year. So essentially saying he wants Sundial to be fully profitable by the end of 2022. So within the next couple of months, he wants to no longer be taking in a loss. He wants to be generating a profit. That seems like something that will be very possible with the acquisition of Alcana that just closed a little bit ago. Now, he also, or Sundial also put out this little result right here, just something interesting that I thought I would mention, something very positive for their growth. He said in January 2022, the company's yield was up 58% per square foot to 61 grams of cannabis versus 2021 of January, right? So we're looking at a situation where over the past year, they've upped their yield by 58%. So really impressive stuff. That's obviously going to have a monumental impact on their business, right? Huge news right there, up 58% yield-wise over the past year just about to 61 grams per square foot. Really good stuff to see there. Big growth. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the earnings in a second, but first I wanted to say or read out another thing that the CEO said, Zach. Mentioned something about a rebranding, right? So there is going to be a rebranding at Sundial, and this is a letter that he released with the earnings call. He said, over the last 2 years, rapid and material change has resulted in our original Sundial growers' identity becoming less relevant, given our broader business activities. As we reevaluate our company's vision and realign our values, the time has come for Sundial to rebrand. We intend to rebrand the company with investor support at our upcoming annual meeting. The new brand will better reflect our activities as a company and the undeniable impact that investor support has had on the business. So no longer will Sundial be Sundial Growers. It will probably rebrand to something else, something new, something a little bit more catchy potentially, something a little bit more interesting. And this letter is available on the Sundial website. You can read the whole thing if you want. That was the most interesting snippet that I found in it. But potentially, there's a lot of stuff that he said in here. He talked about the whole history that Sundial has been going through, a whole bunch of stuff. Now, overall, earnings call recap, and then the future, right? What are we looking at for the future of Sundial, right? This obviously did not move Sundial stock all that much. I didn't expect that it would be pumping up massively on the earnings call. I figured it would be a good earnings call, and it was. It's looking like the price action isn't reflecting that too much. We'll see over the next couple of days if it starts to. But overall, good earnings call, right? For this quarter, it's showing very rapid growth in their business, right? A lot of momentum is what we're looking at right now. And while they did actually lose out to 2020 regarding the whole year results, that was mostly from the prior 3 quarters, right? They actually performed pretty darn good in the fourth quarter. Now, regarding the shorts, it looks like this hasn't changed the short interest all that much. Short interest is up 1.25%. We're looking at about 200 million shares short right now. It's remained fairly steady over the past couple of days, right? I wouldn't expect this to change too much. It wasn't too unexpected. It was pretty much what people were thinking would be happen, right? It wasn't a crazy out there earnings call one way or the other. It was pretty in line with what people were expecting. The news that Sundial is going to rebrand is interesting, right? That's some new news right there. That's something that could be pretty good for the business, considering the fact that it is supported so strongly by investors. Rebranding could be good. It could potentially be negative, right? If some people aren't keeping up with Sundial as often as others, they might end up forgetting about what this company is. They might not realize it's going through a rebranding. They might one day wake up with a weird stock in their portfolio and end up selling it out, figuring Sundial got bought out or something like that. Who knows what this rebranding can do? They're going to have to do a really good job of getting the word out there. But one final thing that I will talk about regarding Sundial stock and the positive future that they could have regarding legalization, right? Legalization is obviously, in my mind, I've been very vocal about this, the biggest catalyst that I think is out there for Sundial stock. It's what I think is going to be moving the stock up more than anything else, more than a good earnings call or a share buyback. I think that legalization is what's going to drive the hype that's probably going to drive Sundial to new highs. And that could actually be happening sometime, right? We're finally getting some more positive confirmation that this could be happening. Biden has finally granted relief to people with federal cannabis and drug convictions after more than a year in office. Now, this is really big news because up until this point, Biden has not been friendly towards cannabis in any way whatsoever, right? Despite having on his campaign website the pledge that he would decriminalize cannabis during his term. It's a pledge that he's made. It's something that he has not made any action on until now. So finally, we're starting to see Biden come around a little bit to cannabis convictions. I think he sees the writing on the wall. A lot of politicians are actually starting to see the writing on the wall, the massive support that there is for cannabis legalization, and the huge swaths of people who are willing to vote for politicians who will actually enact that. So with the November midterms coming up, I think Biden and the Democrats are trying to rally some support for themselves, and we might finally get some significant movement on cannabis legalization over the next couple of months. Hopefully we will. This is just a little story prompting me to think that it might be coming sooner rather than later, right? The fact that Biden has not ever until this point actually been too friendly towards cannabis legalization or any kind of cannabis related activity. This is very good news to see that Biden's finally taking this stance, that he's finally starting to at least acknowledge cannabis and starting to react to it in a positive way for legalization, right? The fact that he's expunging these criminals, that's good to see. Or these people who used to be criminals, right? He's he's getting them off the hook for what they've done. So it's good to see that, in my opinion. Obviously, none of this is financial advice. I'm just letting you guys know what's going on with Sundial stock and what might be going on in the future. But it's, once again, just my opinion, not financial advice. And if you guys enjoyed, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Other than that, though, have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.